Yeah, it's funny. Myself and Rob's out there somewhere, and several others ran this event for a few years. But it's actually only my second time on stage in 4 years post-COVID. So if I act a little weird or if I'm echoing, that's not my fault. But please bear with me. So I guess the first thing I want to say is that nobody that's in charge, like the office of the CTO, you actually don't get to make very many strategic choices. What you're really doing is enabling strategic choices. And so I probably should have submitted the title to be more like this. So what I mean by that is that no one person can understand all the tech and everything that's going on and so forth. It really has to be a collaborative effort. Then the other question that may be in your head is, what the heck does this have to do with DevOps? And for me, that is because I, several years ago, wrote this. One of the things that I think is important, and this is going to be true for as we go through when I talk about tech trends and that sort of thing, is that you have a shared understanding in the room of what a word means. I have no illusions that you're going to say, oh, that's what DevOps means because Ken said so. Please don't. But that's what I mean when I say it. So during this talk, if I say DevOps, that's what I mean. It's not an infrastructure tool or anything like that. It's a culture. And so technology choices are part of that culture. And again, the other reason I share this is to encourage you, when you're talking in your organizations, when you're saying what a thing is, if you say, oh, we're doing microservices, please define what you mean by that. Because we actually wrote one of the first microservices books, and I would say that 90% of the microservices aren't. But that's okay as long as you all agree on what it is. So, sorry, but a little bit of a brag slide, just for those that don't know who Thoughtworks is, and why this became important. I promise this is all for a purpose. Most of the talk's going to be about a couple of publications that we put out. It's not to get you to go download the publications. You're welcome to do so. There's no registration required. I'm not trying to sell you anything. It's so that you can do these kinds of things inside your org because they have helped us. We happen to publicize them, but they're mostly for internal. So the problem that we had is that we live very much on the leading and sometimes bleeding edge. We probably invented a lot of the things that you use, but didn't necessarily put our name on it or what have you. So our chief scientist is a guy by the name of Martin Fowler, who's one of the signatories on the Agile Manifesto. And they were really talking about extreme programming a lot. But there weren't very many good things for automated build and test, so we made cruise control. A few years later, it became obvious that the platform of the future was web-based applications. They were really, really hard to test, and so we created Selenium. For those that don't know, if you get mercury poisoning, the doctor gives you Selenium as an antidote. So mercury was the big testing tool in 2004, and that's where it got its name. But so through the years, we did this. But the problem wasn't a problem for us, but we were also growing at the same time and going global and opening new offices and all those sorts of things. But we're also a very flat organization. We don't believe in top-down. We believe in autonomous teams and those sorts of things. And so how do we share and how do we make sure the people in London know what happened in San Francisco, and they know what happened in Singapore, and they know what happened in wherever, Melbourne. So that was the challenge. That is what we call our again, a little bit of a, don't mean as a pitch, but this is our Thoughtworks why. When we come up with policies or whatever, this is what we balance them against. So I have to read the middle one because I don't want to mess it up. Create extraordinary impact on the world through our culture and technology excellence. And so we want to do that, but at the same time, we have exploding growth. So I mean, right now, especially with COVID, probably 60% of Thoughtworkers is what we call them, have been with the company less than 2 years. Because we're growing, we've acquired companies, and you get shrinkage and all those things that happen. And so how do you do that? Also globally distributed, as I mentioned, with a strong emphasis on team autonomy. Now, we really believe in self-organizing teams, but that doesn't mean you get to do anything you want. One of the things I like to do, and this is one reason I don't have talk notes, is take advantage of somebody in the audience. Rob Cummings right there was running the technology department, and his team said, oh, we don't believe you're just going to let us do what we want. And so he told them, okay, pick a decision and you make it, and I will back you. And so it was a tool thing as it turned out, but he had to just demonstrate to them, am I getting that right, that they really did have autonomy. So we believe in that, but it doesn't mean you can do anything. We really don't want 97 AWS accounts that we're billing and trying to manage. We don't want to implement the latest database or what have you if we don't know how to manage it later. So we do have to put some guardrails. And then, of course, technology landscape. When we were trying to deal with this challenge, when we came up with the publication I'm going to show you first, it was 2008. And public cloud was really taking off. We were going to microservice architecture. Continuous delivery was just taking off. That book published in 2010. First DevOpsDays, I think, was in 2009. So everything was really changing. And a thought worker came up with this idea of putting technology on a thing that we call the radar. To just say, where is this in our field of vision? And so that's the first thing I want to go through. And again, I'm going to go through these two publications, and then I'm going to show you how you can create them internally. Because the power of this isn't downloading ours. The power of this is creating yours. And so what is it? It's basically a way, actually I'm going to skip that one because that one is a marketing slide and I don't want that. So what is the Thoughtworks Technology Radar? It's basically about tracking interesting things. Now one thing that's important to know here is this is not all just meant to be advice, and it shouldn't be in your organization either. This is a statement of fact. Something cannot be an adopt unless we have adopted it, and we are using it on paid clients. And I'll go into what each of those mean here in just a second. But this is a statement of fact for these different technologies of what we are doing with them. We often get hit with, well, why isn't this on there? We haven't used it yet. Doesn't mean it's bad. We just haven't used it. And so we can't put it in there. We're literally not allowed to. So what are the rings? What do they mean? And most people that create their own stick with something close to this, but spoiler alert, you can change them, be whatever you want. So as you see, the middle one, the closest in, is adopt. So we feel strongly that you should be doing that. Security in your pipelines, that sort of thing. The circles around them mean they're new. The half circles mean they've moved in or out. So when you're seeing something. Trial is worth pursuing. So for us, that means we are actively trying it on at least 2 paid clients. So again, we can't just say, ooh, this looks cool. If it's, ooh, this looks cool, it's in assess. So we're telling the organization, hey, think about this. Think about where it might apply. Talk to your customers. See if it can solve a problem, that sort of thing. And hold is, don't do this. When the radar came out, we described hold as, we will make fun of you in the bar if you do this. But that's really not accurate, because hold here, all of these rings, frankly, are as much a business strategic decision as they are a technology decision. So often, it's slowed down now, but a few years ago, there was a new JavaScript front-end framework every month, probably more often than that. And some were very, very good. We put them on hold inside our organization because we didn't want 97 front page or front-end libraries. We wanted to choose a few. And so sometimes something's on hold because we just don't want to start new projects with it. We're not going to take it out of projects that it's there. It's not a security risk necessarily, anything like that. We're just not going to start any new projects with it. That one gets us in a lot of trouble. We've had more than one, VP of marketing for company X be like, why did you put my product on hold? Well, we just think these two are a better option. Sorry. We also get people calling us saying, hey, can I pay to get on Thoughtworks Radar? No. It really is internal. And so, we share it out there for people to use. Now the quadrants, so if I go back, just to remind there, so there's the pie for the rings, and then there's quadrants. Our quadrants, the ones that we found the most important, were these. not going to read slides to you because I hate it when people do that. I'll give you a second. The truth is we're not super fussed about where something fits in a quadrant. There's a lot of things that you can claim, well, it's a tool or is it a platform? I don't know. It depends on your definition. We don't really care. We care a lot about the ring. This is less important, I guess. Important is maybe not the right word, but, well, yes, it is. It's not important. So then we published Radar. We came out in 2010, and it gets lots and lots and lots of downloads and so forth. We published a tool to build your own, which I'm going to show you at the end. But then about 4 or 5 years ago, we started hearing more and more from our clients that they wanted not advice on which JavaScript library or which AWS service or what have you, but more strategic, high level. What's going to happen with Metaverse? Spoiler, nothing. What's going to happen with ChatGPT? We missed that one by a week. They really wanted more things that were looking out. So we internally, inside our office of the CTO, had been doing the Thoughtworks technology strategy for many years, where we would look at trends that were coming, and we would say, we want to react to this one, not this other one, what have you. And so we put out a report every year, and one of the things, we'd group trends, and it would say, and they would be categorized as must react immediately. And that was my boss, Rebecca, our CTO at the time, CTO Emerita now, telling the heads of technology, I expect you to have a reaction to this. The reaction might be, this isn't big in my market, I'm not going to do anything. But if I ask you about this, you know, if it's developer experience platforms 5 years ago and I ask you about it, you better have an answer. And they're bigger, so it's not a specific thing. It's more like trends, like AI on the edge is a trend. Not AWS's versus Google's versus whatever, so it's higher level. So what it came down to is this. My boss does not care which AI tool I use to generate that image. She does care that she doesn't have 6 fingers. Okay, so these are the kinds of choices we're talking about at this level. It's like, they don't care what programming language you use. What they care about is, are we ever going to support it? Is it secure? Is it compliant? And yes, does it help us sell more widgets? So with that, we came out with the publication called The Looking Glass. We took our Thoughtworks, our technology strategy, but changed the advice. Like, I'm not going to tell you that you must have an answer to something. That would be, Rebecca can't do that. She doesn't have that power. But we can say you should adopt this or what have you. And again, inside your organization, I highly recommend you do the same. Now this, as I mentioned, is targeted at like the business leaders, the people making the decisions there. And so what is this? That's the marketing slide, but it's prioritized technology trends. Also, the word strategic is important here. One of the things I used to rant about, and I pinned a tweet, I don't know, 4 years ago when it was still called Twitter. Strategic choices are choices. Okay, if I download a report that shows me what the most downloaded things were last year, and which I do to find out what trends are around, that's an observation. That's not strategic advice. Okay, in 2024, use public cloud is not strategic advice. You know, which one might be. And so keep in mind that when you're talking about these level of things, it's where the opposite would be reasonable is where you provide the most value. So if your teams and your people are trying to make a decision between 2 things, okay, what are we going to choose and why? Is it a better fit for our business? Do we have more capability there? Do we have people that already know it? Do we have a support contract in place that'll cover it? You know, et cetera. It's a strategic decision. And so that's important. From a format, they look pretty similar, except this one has a timeline. Instead of being like platforms and tools and that kind of stuff, it's a timeline. So the light blue, the one on the left for anybody that says, I don't know what colorblind, is it colorblind? It's like blue, I'm not sure, is seeing now. The timelines, the seeing now, beginning to be seen, on the horizon, those should be in wide agreement. So yeah, we're seeing this now. It's everywhere. ChatGPT, seeing now. okay? Beginning to see is pretty self-explanatory. On the horizon, we sometimes internally call wild and wacky. There's only a couple things on this particular example, but quantum cryptography is on here. That's never going to show up on the radar because the team in Thoughtworks London is not implementing quantum cryptography. Okay, so, but it is something that we want to know about and be prepared for because it could change a lot. So the tech strategy part of it, what we call the looking glass, when you're doing this internally, don't forget the things out there that are long shots that might change things massively. We had a lot of AI things out there a couple of years ago. And because of that, we were doing some training internally and making those choices and hired Danilo Sato, you may have heard of, that wrote a couple books on the thing, Emily Korsinski, who's done a bunch of stuff on there. So we wanted to be ready for AI. We acquired a company in Finland that was an AI specialty because it was on the horizon. We weren't going to change the way everybody worked, but we were going to prepare for that change because we felt like it was a pretty strong bet. Okay, so when you have to think about these trends, you have to think about, as I mentioned, strategically for your organization. Again, feel free to download Looking Glass. It's kind of my baby. Me and my team manage it. Make fun of me, whatever. But the more important thing is that you use the methods for you. So the first thing is applicability. Even if you're 100% right, this is coming, this is going to take off, whatever. Does it make sense for you? The worst reason in the world to do something is because Netflix did it. But I see people do that all the time. It's not about that some person that doesn't do your company, and it's not about does Thoughtworks do it. We're a software delivery consultancy. I doubt most of you are in that business. So does this apply to your business? Capability. Do you even have the skill set? So one of our focus areas in the Looking Glass is this thing called humanity augmented. And it's everything from natural language processing to virtual reality to augmented reality and that sort of thing. We have a lot of capability in the Rs, the ARs, VRs, and that sort of thing. And so we were trying to answer this a couple of years ago. Do we hire game developers and teach them how enterprises work? Or do we train enterprise developers how to do virtual reality? Okay, because what does it mean to buy insurance in the metaverse? Well, first off, I hope that never happens, but what does it really mean? You go and stand in a virtual line? What does it look like when it's in 3 dimensions? In a web-based app, in a mobile app, and a whatever, I can kind of control where the user goes next, or at least where they can go next. Sometimes to bad results, but I can control it. Virtual reality, you can't. You don't know where their eyes are going to track or what's going to happen. I wonder, I don't know this, but we're playing, of course, with the Vision Pro like everybody is. And I don't know if anybody's tried one on yet, but it's more augmented reality where you can see what's going on in the world. We had our CTO, our European CTO was trying it out, and somebody walked in the room and he looked at them because he can, and it triggered something in the UI because they thought he was looking at an icon. So you have to think about that, and do you have that capability and the skill sets? Differential. What's going to set you apart? Okay, if you launch an LLM company right now, you might get lots of funding and everything else, but you got some heavy competition. Okay, so what's your difference going to be? And notice though, we're the office of the CTO. We're not the business development, but you have to think about this. What's going to differentiate the way you do this versus the way your competitors are going to do it for external facing things? Constraints. If you're a relatively small organization, you probably have a contract with 1 or maybe 2 public cloud providers. And it's in your best interest to put as much there as you can because it makes pricing differences, it makes management different, training, certifications, all of the things. So if a new trend comes out and Google's implementation of it is significantly better than Amazon's, but you don't want to go open a Google account, sorry, Caitlin, then maybe this isn't the best thing for you to jump on. Or you have to make the business decision that am I willing to do that? Personally, I don't believe that you can single cloud in today's world. I think you have to do some kind of multi-cloud, but whatever. But what are those constraints? Regulatory. Some of this stuff is bleeding edge, and you're not going to be able to do it for regulatory reasons. But think about the constraints. Production experience. Have you done related things? And we are talking about seeing now, but also future trends here. But have you done things that you can leverage? You know, so like when Docker came out, if you had already used Solaris Zones or any one of the main container things, you had a little bit of a leg up. So do you have that, and has it been successful? Experience doesn't count if it didn't work. Okay, now trying things that fail is a good idea, by the way. Okay, I mean, it's very cliche, but you learn as much from failure or more than success, and et cetera, et cetera. But if you've tried to do a bunch of virtual reality stuff and you just haven't cracked the code of how to do the user interface or how to train people or whatever, and now you want to jump on Apple Vision augmented reality, ain't going to work. Okay, you're building on not a good foundation there. So you really have to think about that. And then customer fit. Are your existing customers likely to have this need? So we were looking a lot, like everybody else, at all the Web3 technologies a few years ago. And still nobody's pointed out something to me that's a use of blockchain that I couldn't do some other way, but that's partially because I'm old and get off my grass. But if it's a really brand new thing, do your customers even do this, or are you going to have to open a whole new market to do it? Okay, so like, again, I'll pick on augmented reality. There's some really cool stuff there. My customers don't have $3,500 Apple headsets. And so for us to go out and build a bunch of stuff for Apple Vision Pro doesn't make sense today. So you really need to think about that. It can be the coolest thing in the world and you want to do it, but if you can't sell it. So where do we look to find trends? We're very big on the idea of a T-shaped engineer. That's where I know a little bit about several things and a little bit more about one or two other things. But no one is going to know enough about anything to do this, right? This is a team effort. And it's not just your team, it's other teams. Because don't forget about the bubble that you live in and all the biases like confirmation bias and so forth. So what do we look at? Of course, we do look at our own people. But importantly, even if they aren't subject matter experts, these are passionate technologists that work for you and us. And they're playing with virtual reality, even if that's not their job. And so they might know about the new Quest 3 or whatever. And so we send out a call for trends to 11,000 plus Thoughtworkers and say, hey, what's something cool that you've seen that you think we should be looking more into? And we send that in. It's a ton of work. It's worth every second. Then we also actually do talk to our subject matter experts because that would be good too. Interestingly, the way we did it, it's good to have a witness for these conversations. And that's one of the places where some of the generative AI tools are really useful. What we did is we did calls with our subject matter experts. Now, for the person running these calls, if you're a global organization, this is painful because that was me. And I had calls at 6 a.m. and I had calls at 8 p.m. and I had calls in between and whatever else because we want to, it's there. And all we do is we invite a bunch of people that we know that know this, and then we put out a broad thing that says anybody else wants to join. We're going to cap it at a certain number of people so we can keep it interactive, but please join this. And then we turned on all of the transcripts for the meeting. For last year's, this was, I think, June of last year. And so the generative AI stuff was out, but it was still trying to figure out what's going on. And one of my colleagues took the transcripts and he fed them to ChatGPT and he came back with summaries of the calls. And in one of the cases, we looked at that and we said, this is claiming it's hallucinating. It's claiming we talked about this thing and nobody brought that up. That wasn't important to anybody. And so on the one hand, it's important when you're using Gen AI tools to have someone that knows what good looks like, that could recognize we never talked about that. But it's also important to trust that there are human biases. We went back and looked at the transcripts, and they did talk about it. Dave and I missed it because we weren't thinking that way. Okay, so that witness thing is a good thing. So have somebody in these sessions, whether it be AI or human or whatever it is, some mix in between, are we there yet? That is not part of the thing, that can witness and say, no, this is what I heard. Publications you trust. Unfortunately, and this is not going to be a surprise to anybody in this room, there's a lot of regurgitated stuff out there now. So some GPT tool read a bunch of stuff on the internet and produced an article, and now the other GPTs are using that article. So there's a lot of like regurgitation there. So be careful about, do I trust this person or what have you? But look at those, watch those. I daily subscribe to a bunch of mailing lists that are saying what they're seeing. And then this one is one where some of us had to go over our own bias. Industry analysts, even if you personally don't trust them. So there's a love-hate relationship with the Gartners and Forresters of this world. Okay, but most of us are in business. And so people are listening to Gartner and Forrester. Part of my job is I talk to these folks every couple of weeks, and they really are trying to do the right things and gather all the data and so forth. Don't ignore them, because your customers aren't. And then the list is endless. We have a chat room that when one of us on the Looking Glass team sees something, we add a link to a spreadsheet that's attached to that room so that we can remember to go back and look at it. When you see that link, put it in your notebook, do something. You're not going to remember tomorrow. People are like, oh, I got to remember to look at that when I'm doing the session. You're not going to. Add it somewhere. Okay, so for each trend, if you can't do these four, then just ignore it, because you can't make a decision on it. Okay, so what's the evidence? What makes you believe this is true? I've seen this. The analyst said that. We've got a trend for the other, whatever it happens to be. A short definition of the trend. We had a few in our first publication of this, our first external publication, a few years ago, that were just like, yeah, I really can't define it in a few sentences because we had a glossary. And we finally made the decision that if you can't, then it's not clear enough. Maybe it needs to be broken up. Maybe we don't have a good enough handle on it, or what have you. But if it takes 3 paragraphs to define a trend, then we can't act on it. It's not actionable. A list of the specific opportunities that you expect. So one of the lenses in our looking glass is a thing called responsible tech. And so if we act in a greener way, we expect that we'll have specific opportunities to address markets that don't want to talk to people that only want to burn the earth down. If we value your privacy, that we expect that certain people will align with that. If we don't implement certain technologies, certain people will align with that. We were talking to one of the analysts about data tracking, and a disturbingly large number of people, to me, were like, I am totally okay with Facebook or whoever tracking everything I do because I want that ad. In my house, we disagree on that. My girlfriend will go into a shopping cart. So if you're an e-commerce person, she'll go in, she'll access the shopping cart, and she'll abandon it. Because in 24 hours, she's going to get a coupon. So she's gaming it. But she wants it. I wear a tin hat. So, actionable advice. This is cool, doesn't count. What do you expect people to do with it, etc.? And again, like if you can't do those, then you're probably not ready. You should have all of this. Explicit conversations about unintended consequences. Okay, so we did a system recently where if you walk into the Lincoln Library in President Lincoln in Illinois, and you're going up to the things, you can take your phone and it's augmented reality, and you can put it over a thing, and it gives you a bunch of extra context. Very cool. How many people are going to be in that picture that don't want to be? Okay, so we had to think about framing and those sorts of things, and you have to be a certain close and this whatever to try to keep background out of it, etc. And so think about those things. An understanding of the societal impact. Bias is real. Okay, natural language processing, the ability to speak to the assistant of your choice, or all these chatbots that are out there, or whatever, is very different in different languages. So think about what that is. And then understand the trade-offs between trends. Almost every trend that you think about has a plus and a minus, right? If I do this one, that makes this one harder. If I'm going to take data privacy really seriously, that's going to make AI on the edge hard. Think about those. And then just to justify my own job, that's our timeline for putting together last year's. This is a lot of work, but it is worth it. If you're a 6-person company and you can all just talk, maybe not. But if you're a larger organization or what have you, this is what it takes, minus the marketing stuff, because you're probably not going to publish it. But feel free if you want to. But it's going through and doing all the interviews and boiling it down and editing the copy. And when we're all working from home, my girlfriend used to make fun of me. She's like, "You guys spend 10 minutes on one word," because words matter. Okay, and so it is a lot of work, but I promise it's worth it. You are going to miss things. 2023 edition published on 1 December 2022, exactly one day after ChatGPT was launched. So our looking glass for 2023 did not have ChatGPT in it. We had more than one person go, how'd you miss that? Because that big timeline I showed you was before they launched it. So we did an addendum, and what can I say? Oops. You're not going to be right on all this stuff, and that's okay. Okay, so putting these to work in your organization. How do we do these? So first off, most likely Radar is the one to start with. Radar is very good at communicating the things that you want to use, the things you don't want to use, the thing you want to check out at a practitioner level for the people that are actually writing the technology. It's a living artifact. It's a statement of time. The important thing is we've put all the tools out there for you to build the visual and everything, but the conversations are what is important. It's about talking about why this library and not that one, why this cloud platform and not that one. It's making those decisions so that everybody feels valued and can do it. We have people that use these for governance. We don't, but we have people that turn these into a thou shalt. If it's on hold, you're not allowed to use it. If it's a database and it's an adopt, these are the only ones you can use. It's a good way to communicate that. It's visual, it works. Blank page here. So how is your Radar different from ours? The first thing is you do have to establish the goals. Why are you building this? Is it an executive summary? Is it to get on the same page? Are you trying to spread knowledge? Whatever it is, know why you're doing it. I mean, that's true with anything, right? If you don't have clear goals, you're not going to be very successful. And so know what you're trying to do. And then establish the scope. So a lot of organizations, like if you work for, if you work for Google or Amazon, they have entire different business units, and they're going to have entire different things that they use. Okay, so what is the scope of yours? You need to know this. You need to stick to that. If you do these in person, which I highly recommend, don't skip the social hour. People knowing each other and being comfortable is very, very important to this. Adapting the rings. These work for us. This is the most important part of the actual advice that you're going to give your organization. What are you telling them to do? Okay, depending on where this is coming from, I mean, like I said, it could be governance. It could be a permission thing. You're not allowed to do if not. Don't be afraid, if anyone's familiar with the term paved road. So, like you might have like an internal developer experience platform, and if you use this platform, we're going to handle all this other stuff. But you're allowed to use this outside thing if it doesn't meet your needs, but then you have to do all the compliance and security or what have you. That's okay to put in this kind of thing too. You can say adopt this one, but try the other one. But think about it, what it is you want to communicate. Revisit the quadrants. You're probably not a software consultancy, so these probably don't fit you, but they might. That's okay. But also, think about this. Are the quadrants even important to you? Okay, so for us they are. We have cross-functional autonomous teams, but we still have people whose specialty is infrastructure or databases or whatever. And so it's important to us that they can look at a quadrant and have a reasonable thing. But maybe it's not important to you. If you're a product company and you have a single product and you're all working on the same thing, you don't even need quadrants, so don't waste your time. When you get into discussions, we highly, highly recommend in person. Even the global team, they fly to somewhere. The Roast Booster was New York. Of course, they can do a remote. We had to do a remote in COVID. But we fly everybody. It's expensive, but the in-person cannot be overstated. Write down the technologies on sticky notes. Let everybody spend some time. There's a big wall that looks like the radar. They put sticky notes up. I don't know if I included a picture of that or not. But so dedicate time to each quadrant and begin a vote with index cards. See that there I was holding up a card? That's how they vote. We don't care about exact count. Rebecca runs the thing, and she's, oh yeah, mostly green. Okay, go. Okay, you're not going to get consensus on any of this. Prioritize the ring discussion, as I've mentioned. Quadrants probably aren't very important. This is hard for most technologists. If you can't solve it in 4 to 6 minutes, parking lot it. Because you don't have anywhere near consensus. And we actually have a concept called too complex to blip. Things that nobody could agree, and so it goes somewhere else, and we end up writing a blog about it instead, or something like that. And then encourage discussion. Safe spaces are so important. Disagreement is not only okay, but encouraged, as long as it's civil and we're trying to come up with it and so forth. So a lot of this, and I think I may have this later, I'm not sure. A lot of this is making sure that everybody feels and is heard. Those are two different things. Okay, I can think that I'm hearing, I'm going to pick on you, Rob, because I know your name. I can think I'm hearing Rob, but if he doesn't feel like I'm hearing him, then we're not working it, right? So make sure that these are psychologically safe places and everybody can encourage the discussion. We have the advantage of this is our technology advisory board. They've all been with us for years. They know each other very well. And then, yeah, there's the picture of in progress. Oh, yep, cameo from Martin and Zamak. But that's what ours looked like when we were looking at it. And there's a lot of staring out the window, wondering what's happening. So ways of working. Personal courage, as I kind of mentioned. Strong opinions loosely held. Do state your opinion. If you don't agree with what's being said, say so. And if somebody doesn't agree with what you said, please take that. Feedback is a gift. Okay, equal voices. I talked a little bit about that, but it can't be stressed enough. Remember, this is a living document. Just because I write it down today doesn't mean that I think it's going to be true 6 months from now. So don't feel like you have to justify. You publish a radar, and 3 months later somebody says, well, why didn't you, whatever. One of the rules on ours is if it doesn't move in a certain amount of time, we drop it off the radar. So I remember some number of years ago, someone came up to me and they're like, you guys don't use Java anymore? Like, yeah, we do, but it hasn't moved. It's where it's been, so there's no reason to track it. The radar tracks movement. Be engaged. Don't be checking your email and whatever. And somebody, what do you think about that? Oh, I don't know, but apparently I'm getting whatever for lunch tomorrow. Try to be engaged, and then keep the side conversations to a minimum. These are, when done correctly. Well, correctly is a hard word. These are almost always chaotic because you got a bunch of people in there. You got 4 to 6 minutes for each blip. You're chatting about it. You're trying to get pluses and minuses, etc. They're chaotic. Side conversations. I say something and he wants to respond, and they distract. We actually hold up a card that tells the moderator that you want to say something. It's the hand in Zoom or whatever. Okay, some quick tips and tricks. I do see the clock. Don't worry, folks, back in the back. What was the actual experience? As I mentioned, for us in Adopt, we have to actually adopted it. What was the experience like? Not only did it work and sell more widgets, but was it a pain to train people? Was it a pain to support? That kind of stuff. Recommendation. And again, it doesn't have to be purely technical. It could be perfectly good, but there's a better value or a better alternative. So Bing, alternatives. The constraints I talked about earlier, I'm not going to do that. Production experience is very important. Again, same thing there. But then this last one is documentation. Not just documentation, training, upskilling, that sort of thing. One of the things in a DevOps continuous delivery world that we like to talk about is, I can deploy 97 times a day. That's great. Can you train your support engineers 97 times a day? Probably not. Okay, so it's everything. It's, can I really implement this and take advantage of it? Release is trained people that support it, trained people that know how to sell it, user train. It's all of that stuff. And so when we're talking about blips, it's the same idea. Now I mentioned that the most important thing is the discussion. It's not the visualization, but if you want to visualize it, you can. There's the links. I'll leave that up there for a second. We did a tool, and again, there's no registration on anything. It's just all go get it. Our radar is on the top there. There's a tool we did called Build Your Own Radar, that if you want to put all of the results of your discussion into a Google Sheet and upload it, we'll create the visualization for you. If you want to download that package, you can. It's open source. Because if you don't want to put stuff there, because for us to read it, I think it might have to be publicly available or publicly viewable. So if this is strategic, probably don't want to do that. But you can. The looking glass is there. We don't create any tools to create a looking glass because that is just discussion. But feel free to take a look at it. And with that, I will say thank you.